Hello everyone, back into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days for today's second video. This takes us to the 15th of October, but actually in terms of the extended GFS, we will be able to extend out beyond that into the second half of October as well. I'll bring you up to date with what's happening in the tropical Atlantic as well. There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what's going on next week. So the early part of next week, I think we'll have quite a bit of dry weather for the south. It'll be a bit more unsettled in the north. Temperature's going to be warm next week. That is very much nailed down. Just the overall pattern that is still causing uncertainty. This morning I thought it looked like Mars was shifting towards high pressure dominating up to the middle part of October. But actually the very latest run of the GFS 6 o'clock run has thrown a bit of a spanner in the works on that. But I think Mars probably have shifted towards high pressure dominating the middle part of October. But the GFS is probably a bit of an outlier. But we'll talk you through all of that in a moment. Anyway, I'm going to show you the both midnight and the 6 o'clock run of the GFS, so you can see the differences between the two Mars. But we're going to begin by saying big thank you to the latest patrons and donors for gas service. So let's deal with Patron first of all. I'm going to say big thank you to George Richards. Now, George was a donor for Gazworthies yesterday via PayPal. George has now signed up for a Patreon account to give us an ongoing monthly donation. So a big thank you to George Richards for doing that. Also to Samuel Bentley. Samuel is our 29th patron. We're trying to get up to 30 patrons. I think we will do that quite soon. But a big thank you to George and to Samuel for becoming the latest patrons for Gazworthies. Also, I'm going to say big thank you to our latest donors via PayPal. So I'm going to say big thank you to Jonathan Henley. Jonathan Henley has given a donation to Gazworthies. And also to Susan Anderson. Big thank you to both Jonathan and to Susan for becoming Gazworthies' latest donors. Now, if you'd like to become a patron for Gazworthies, like George and Samuel have done, then this is the Gazworthies Patreon page. So what you have to do is just come to this page. We link to it on all the pages at Gazworthies and in the description at YouTube. Just come here, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation to Gazworthies. You can cancel it at any time, but the idea is that it's an ongoing sort of thing. So it can be anything from $1 a month upwards, and that's how you become an official patron for Gazworthies. If you would prefer to just give a one-off donation through PayPal, then this is Gazworthies.me PayPal page. So again, we link to this at all pages at Gazworthies and in the description at YouTube. So this is really simple. If you've got a PayPal account, most people have, you just sign into your PayPal account, and then you can via this page you can very safely and securely send any amount of money, any donation you would like to Gazworthies, and by doing that you become a donor for Gazworthies. So again, big thank you to George, to Samuel, to Jonathan and to Susan for becoming patrons and donors for Gazworthies. And a big thank you to all of the donors and all of the patrons for Gazworthies. It's helping us to pay for the website, helping us to keep all of the content completely free of charge. There are costs associated, particularly with having Gazworthies. And we're primarily ads funded, and we're going to remain ads funded primarily. This is just an added revenue stream. We certainly won't be going behind paywalls or doing anything like that. We want to keep the content totally free at the point where you want it on demand, so there'll be no issue about paywalls or anything like that for the content. Just an added revenue stream, as ad revenues are falling year on year. I talked about this yesterday, so I won't go over it again today, but it gives us an added sort of revenue stream. We don't want to go behind paywalls, so we think this is a nice sort of way of people getting involved if they would like to do so. No one's under any obligation to donate or become a patron. Just if you would like to, if you can afford to, then that's how you can do it. And a big thank you to all of the donors, all of the patrons for Gazworthies. Finally, a big thank you to George, to Samuel, to Jonathan and to Susan for becoming patrons and donors for Gazworthies. Right, let's get on with the video then. We're going to start off by what's happening in the tropical Atlantic. So we've got two areas of interest. We've got this yellow X down here in the Caribbean, just heading in towards Mexico. That is disturbance 1. There's a 30% chance of cyclone formation with this in the next 48 hours. Showers and thunderstorms associated with an area of low pressure located near Cabo Gracias, Adios, in the eastern border of Honduras and Nicaragua, have become more concentrated during the past several hours. Although strong winds aloft are located just to the north of this system, the upper level environment is expected to be conducive enough to allow slow development, and a tropical depression could form by late this weekend or early next week over northwestern Caribbean Sea or the southern Gulf of Mexico. While the system moves slowly northwestward, it is, regardless of tropical cyclone formation, this disturbance will continue to bring torrential rains primarily to portions of Central America and the Yucatan Peninsula during the next few days. Now, if I pronounce any of those places wrong, very sorry about that. My Spanish isn't all that good. And then further northwards in the central Atlantic, we've got Tropical Storm Leslie. So Leslie has gone back from a hurricane to a tropical storm again, and is now giving sustained winds of 65 miles an hour. We've had Leslie meandering around, going round and round in circles and going nowhere fast for a couple of weeks now, virtually, and still Leslie goes on doing that. So down to tropical storm status just there, and forecast to move in that sort of position over the next few days. By Wednesday next week, Leslie is likely to be somewhere around there, still as a tropical storm, still just going round and round circles and not really going anywhere fast. So they're the two areas of interest within the tropical Atlantic at the moment. Right, these are the GFS temperature and precipitation samples of the next couple of weeks. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Manchester. We're looking at the city of Manchester today. Starting off still a bit warmer than average today, but temperatures are on the slide. So it's going to be a pretty chilly weekend coming up, to say the least. In fact, you'll probably say quite a cold weekend, really. But it doesn't last all that long. Next week, we see those temperatures going back up again. So the one thing all models are in agreement about is that next week is going to be pretty warm. Temperatures are going to be quite a bit warmer than average. No problems there. It's just the overall pattern and how unsettled or settled it might be. Now, this is the middle of October just here, 15th. And we go into the second half of the month, we do see the temperature samples dropping back towards average. So it looks like into the second half of October, into the third week of October, if you like, temperatures are cooling down. But that's a really long way off. It's in the extended and unreliable time frame of both the GFS and its ensembles, and so there has to be uncertainty about that. But taken at face value, it looks like temperatures drop away as we go through into the second half of October. Now, as far as precipitation is concerned, we can see we've got these large rainfall spikes coming up just there tomorrow. So tonight, tomorrow, going to be wet. We go beyond that, though, and lots of dry weather, actually, through most of the coming week. We get another dry spell setting up. From around the 11th, 12th of October onwards, the precipitation spikes are coming back, and we go into what is seemingly quite a wet spell, actually, as we go into the middle part of October and then on to the second half of the month. Bear in mind that is for Manchester, so it's one of the wettest places in the UK. And there is, again, a lot of uncertainty about this, although it does appear that there is good agreement there, actually, for quite wet weather to be affected northwestern England from around the 11th, 12th of October onwards. I'm still not totally convinced about it, to be honest, and I'll talk you through the reasons why when we get to the model output, but there is so much uncertainty now about this middle part of October period. What we can say is that temperatures are going to be holding up next week. So the temperature anomaly from the 5th to 13th of October is coming out warmer than average. There's no problems there. Temperature anomalies are forecast to be warmer than average for UK and for Ireland. In fact, nearly all parts of Europe are coming out with above average temperature anomalies in the week ahead. Precipitation anomalies from the 5th to the 13th of October. Most places drier than average. It's a bit wetter than average in the northwest of Scotland. Most places are coming out with drier than average precipitation anomalies in the week ahead. And that's despite what's going to be quite a wet spell through the course of tomorrow, actually. So, get one wet day, but if the other days of the week are dry, then you're going to get overall, usually anyway, a drier than average precipitation anomaly. So, this is the midnight run of the GFS. This isn't the latest GFS run. This is how things were looking on the midnight run. And we're starting on Monday with high pressure to the south and low pressure to the north. So the classic north-south split setup. Weather systems are out there, bringing rain to north and west part of Scotland. We, down in the south anyway, are under that ridge of high pressure. We get through into Tuesday, and again we've got this ridge of high pressure down across the south with low pressure up to the north. Again, the jet stream is going to be in that sort of position. And then we move through into Wednesday next week. High pressure just drifting a little bit further eastwards, starting to bring up more of a southerly wind. So it does turn increasingly warm through the middle part of next week. This is Thursday next week with low pressure out to the northwest of Scotland, becoming quite wet and windy in the north and the west. By the way, down here, bottom right of the bottom left of the chart, as you're looking at it, we've got the remains of what is now Tropical Storm Leslie, and was Hurricane Leslie just yesterday. Now, we get to the end of next week, and these areas of low pressure are being blocked out in the Atlantic, really, as this ridge of high pressure is strengthening over into the east of the country. So by the time you get through to Saturday the 13th of October, beginning to move up towards day 10, high pressure is dominating to the east of the country, bringing in these warm, very warm, east to southeasterly winds and keeping all the areas of low pressure out in the Atlantic. We get to day 10, that's how we're looking. High pressure's over Scandinavia by that point, with these weak areas of low pressure out to the west of the UK. Still warm, still bringing the air up on a southerly flow. In a more extended range with the midnight run of the GFS, these low pressures tried to break down the ridge, but never really succeeding. Always a little bit more unsettled in the north and west of the country, I suppose, but most parts of the country still under that ridge, but away to the east. So there's a lot of dry weather there, and warm weather too, even into the second half of October on the midnight run of the GFS. But now just have a look at the 6 o'clock run of the GFS. We start off very similar, still with the idea of low pressure up to the north and high pressure down to the south, and these very mild northwesterly winds. But as we go through, you will notice some quite big differences. So we get to the middle of next week, drawing up those southerly winds. Up to Wednesday, everything looks fairly straightforward, but by Thursday it's turning more wet and windy out in the Atlantic, out to northwest of Scotland. This will bring rain to all parts of the country, I would have thought, on Thursday, and gale force winds to the north and west of the country as well. That takes us into the weekend of Saturday the 13th of October. The ridge is strengthening to the east, but we have more of an Atlantic influence here. So as we get through to Sunday the 14th, actually another area of low pressure is over the top of the UK, quite wet and windy. At this point, the midnight run of the GFS was building in that high pressure very strongly from the east. So big disagreements up to day 10. That is a chart for day 10, Monday the 15th of October, and again it does look rather wet and windy. And then we go into extended range, and it's very unsettled actually, with low pressure moving in from off the Atlantic. The jet stream is moving to our south, so not only is it unsettled, it's also much cooler as well here as we're going into the second half of October. That's properly wet and really quite cool temperatures with those areas of low pressure. In the very extended range, we start to build high pressure up over Scandinavia again, and try to get a bit of a ridge going. But it's within cool air, so if that did come off, you'd be talking about night frost there, I would have thought. Very, very different between those midnight and 6 o'clock GFS runs. It does go to show the uncertainty that we've got here from as early as around a week's time. This is the ECMWF midnight run. We'll be waiting for a midday run coming up later on today. Starting on Monday, we've got high pressure situated to our south with low pressure up to the north. There's a weather front in that sort of position. Let's run through next week. And for the south, a lot of dry weather up to Wednesday, increasingly warm, some rain at times in the north. That's Thursday. So GFS wants to turn things wet and windy on Thursday. The ECM has this low pressure centred out to west, so it is bringing rain into the west, but eastern air is probably fairly dry. And then in the extended range, look, it's building up that high pressure moving in from the east. So the ECM has shifted quite a lot from yesterday towards a more anticyclonic solution as we move into the middle part of October, turning the winds into the east. And they're fairly warmish easterly winds as well, because whilst the wind is coming from the east, the air is originating south of east, if you see what I mean. So the air is coming up like that and then moving round in that sort of fashion. So it'll be relatively warm easterly flow that we've got there for the middle of October, probably with quite a lot of cloud. And then the GEM finally starting on Monday again with high pressure centred to the south and low pressure up to the north. There's a weather front up there as well. We go through into more extended range, looking rather unsettled for the north and west, should be middle part of next week, I should say. We go through to next weekend, this weekend of 13th, 14th of October, again strengthening the ridge over and to the east of the country. That's how we look at day 10. High pressure is dominating the weather to our east, and we're bringing in those pretty warm easterly winds on the 15th of October. So all of the midnight runs looked like they were shifting towards high pressure dominating. And I do think this morning, when I looked at those, went through all the model output before I did the morning summary at Gazzo's, I did think that actually we was moving quite definitively towards high pressure, winning this little battle between low pressure in the Atlantic and high pressure to the east. I thought we were going to have another run of anticyclonic conditions up to the middle of October. But the 6 o'clock run thrown a real spanner in the works on that. In terms of the ensembles, they also look quite unsettled as well with the GFS. So it really is up for grabs now, this middle part of October. I think we're going to go towards high pressure for the middle of the month, dominating to the east. But whilst we've seen so much intra-run variability within the GFS, I think we do have to stay quite cautious about it. So still haven't sorted things out for like the second half of next week and then beyond that into the middle of October. Of course, anything else beyond that is going to be even more unreliable because it's all subject to change even as early as around Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week. So we shall wait and see. In the more immediate time frame though, temperatures are dropping this weekend. We've got a cold and wet day coming up tomorrow across much of England and Wales. Could be frost quite widely, at least ground frost, tomorrow night. And then Sunday, doesn't look too bad actually for England and Wales, but it will be quite chilly. Turns wet and windy again across the north and west of Scotland. So really quite an autumnal feel to this weekend. And then temperatures returning to quite warm levels through the course of next week. Tomorrow, we've got the weekend forecast coming up for you, as always, and we'll have a look at the weather for next week to 10 days, again, with your 10-day video updates. So come back to that tomorrow. And then on Sunday, of course, we've got the 6th winter update. And, very exciting on Sunday as well, we will begin the written updates for Christmas. So video Christmas updates will begin on the 1st of November, as always. But in October, we always like to do a couple of written updates for Christmas. The first one of those will be coming up on Sunday afternoon. So, going to be a big weekend of updates. Keep checking back to Gazzo's for more. That's all for now, though, and thanks for watching.